You ever see a grown woman in a pink blazer try to evict the U.S. Coast Guard from a private dock and then get her own SUV towed off the same marina she swore she owned? Yeah. That happened right in front of my porch with half the neighborhood watching like it was the 4th of July parade gone completely off the rails. You'd think the HOA would have learned by now not to mess with a guy who literally owns the lake they're standing on. But Sophie Ward, she never met a rule she couldn't weaponize or a crowd she couldn't try to boss around with a clipboard and sunglasses. So picture this. It's Saturday morning sun coming up over Lake Sanders, steam curling off my coffee mug while I'm standing on the porch. I watch Sophie march down my dock like she's leading the homeowner's army, barking orders at some poor tow truck driver who looked like he'd rather be stranded in rush hour traffic than caught in the crosshairs of an HOA showdown. That boat's too big, she snaps it. Blocks community access, remove it immediately. She's already got an audience, neighbors, board members, even a couple of kids in neon vests, eyes wide like they're at the circus. Now the driver hesitates. The chain rattles. And right as Sophie's lieutenant steps forward, he slips and splashes into the shallows. The crowd cracks up, so do I, not even hiding it anymore. Sophie, red-faced, slaps a big orange violation sticker on my hull, only for it to peel right off and stick to her own shoe. I swear you can't script this stuff. That's when my brother, Sheriff Tom, rolls up, hat tilted, grin barely hidden. "Ma'am, you got paperwork for this." She doesn't. Never did. And that was the first crack in her armor the moment she realized she might not be the most powerful person on this dock. She had no clue she and her board had been trespassing on my lake all along. They were so focused on their view corridor and community standards that they never bothered to ask whose name was actually on the deed. Let me back up a sec. This lake's been in my family since my grandfather's day. Earl Sanders. Man with a handshake that could bend steel and a heart about as wide as this shoreline. He taught me that the water remembers who treats it right. Folks used to come here to fish, boat, picnic, whatever. As long as you respected the lake took care of you. That's the deal I kept going all these years, never took a dime, just wanted folks to enjoy what my family built. Sophie Ward didn't understand any of that. Her world ran on memos, fines, bylaws, and that sharp little click of high heels on wood. First, it was a newsletter about mailbox paint, then porch chairs, then the infamous disturbing the aesthetic harmony letter because a kid left a soccer goal on the grass. Next thing we knew, she was president of the HOA, smiled her way into it by showing up the most and frowning the hardest at anything that didn't fit her vision of perfection. Her first letter to me, "Dear Occupant," got burned in the wood stove. The second called out my boat by name. The third outlined a shoreline management plan that sounded a lot like annexation in pearls. That one I kept right next to Grandpa's deed and started a notebook, dates, names, weather every threat and promise. Because when paper comes for you, you meet it on paper. Neighbors started stopping by. Failure to comply letters were piling up. People were scared, and Sophie was out there measuring fences and taping notices to windows. I just kept my coffee hot, asked for copies, screenshots, recordings, anything to show how a simple suggestion had turned into a parade of fines. See, the thing about bullies, if you let them perform long enough, their mask doesn't just slip. It falls off and shatters. I started pulling certified copies of the deed, the riparian rights, every inch of shoreline that was mine to protect. Because out here, a dotted line on a map can't cross a property line just because someone's got a louder bullhorn. Then the real twist phone rings at dusk voice like cracked glass on the other end. Banker wants to know if I'm interested in the marina note, the one Sophie and her crowd had been using as a trophy. I told him, send the paperwork. That's how you buy sand before the storm, quiet, careful, steady. You don't shout. You study. You let the other side show their cards. The lake community started to change. Folks who'd kept their heads down now stood a little taller. Kids asked if the HOA could make rules for the water. Water remembers, I told them, and so does the law if you write it down and keep it safe. Meanwhile, Sophie's emails turned nastier. My boat was too big. My dock was impeding communal visibility. My Coast Guard registration didn't fit subdivision values. That last one made me laugh harder than I had in weeks. I sent her a photocopy of my deed and wrote, Your jurisdiction ends where my property line begins. Didn't hear back until she marched down the dock with her audience, her tow truck, and her sticker army. Law she thought was a hammer, but it's really just a level. All you have to do is show folks the bubble doesn't lie. So when the real showdown started, I was ready, paperwork lined up, evidence file thicker than a Thanksgiving turkey. Sophie tries her stunt again, shouting about view corridors and scenic jurisdiction. Tom rolls up slow and steady and says, "Ma'am, this is private property. You're trespassing again." Phones come out. The neighbors are loving every second. Sophie tries to slap another sticker, but the wax rejects her, lands right back on her own foot. She's losing them. Her own lieutenants don't even want to help her now. Tom gives her a last warning trespass again. You're getting cited. She storms off, clacking heels and all the crowd cheering. I tell folks, let's not riot on my lawn, but if you got footage, save it. Might come in handy. My favorite part, Jim from the Yellow Ranch House yelling, "We've got more angles than a Netflix docu-series." After that, Sophie doubled down. She summoned reinforcements, HOA trucksmen in matching polos, a shiny sedan idling too long by the boat ramp. And then she brought in a lawyer, at least that's what his name tag said. Official business, he declared, reading off bylaws and community code violations, like he was auditioning for a courtroom drama. The crowd gathered phones up, waiting for round two. I baited her into claiming on camera the HOA had full jurisdiction over the lake. She did. That was all I needed. Then, like a twist out of a sitcom, the Coast Guard rolled up. Someone had reported an unauthorized maritime seizure attempt. Sophie turned white. The officers ask her if she's enforcing maritime law. No, it's community regulation, she stammers. They ask for county documentation. She's got nothing but a Wikipedia printout about visual harmony. The lead officer deadpans. So is the moon, ma'am. Doesn't mean you can ticket it. The crowd loses it. Kids start fishing her soggy bylaws out of the lake. One reads out loud, "Visual harmony enforcement," and people laugh so hard their cameras shake. Coast Guard checks my paperwork perfectly in order. "You want coffee?" I ask. Next time they laugh. When they leave, the applause is deafening. Sophie tries to storm off, but slips on her own dignity, caught in slow motion, uploaded to social media, 500,000 views before sundown. The HOA's reputation is in ruins. Jim's Hardware starts selling anti-slip boat wax on special. The local diner advertises a Sophie special humble pie on the side. The HOA isn't feared anymore, they're a punchline. But pride doesn't drown quiet. Sophie tries to renegotiate the HOA's loan with the bank. Too late. I'd already bought the note. Officially, my LLC owns the marina, the stage she keeps trying to perform on. The next weekend, Sophie throws a community emergency meeting. Take back the lake. With Channel 8 News on site, she marches up in full regalia, rants about bylaws and harmony, even brandishes a legal letter that's clearly a template. My brother points out the template sample on the header, and the crowd howls. Right as she's sputtering, Mark, the tow truck driver hero of the people, hooks up her SUV, just enforcing the new owner's request, ma'am. What owner, she shrieks. I raise the deed, Blue Cedar Holdings, all legal, all mine. Tom steps in, touch those documents, and you're facing tampering charges. The cameras roll, the crowd chants. Tao the Queen. Her megaphone goes into the lake, her board slinks away. The news headline says it all. HOA President's protest turns into lakefront festival disaster. Now Sophie tries one last move, sues me for obstruction of community waters and harassment. The courthouse is packed, old fishermen families, even the bar owner in a Free the Lake shirt. Judge Whitaker, who fished this lake with my grandpa, presides. Sophie brings crayon maps and HOA bylaws. I bring the deed, the mortgage, every notarized document since 1932. The judge barely needs to read them. The law doesn't run on collective will, it runs on legal standing. He tosses her case fines the HOA for harassment and bars them from the lake for good. The eviction. It was almost poetic. The sheriff and Coast Guard, the whole neighborhood gathered as the last of the HOA signs were removed, dunked into the lake by Coast Guard buckets, ink running like mascara after a hard cry. Someone's kid starts chanting Freedom Lake. The whole crowd joins in. Even the investor who tried to buy fake water rights admits he was about to buy air. My family deed blocked him anyway. The evening turns into a party music, lantern stories, peace. Sophie tried to file an appeal with memes printed off Facebook as evidence. Judge Whitaker denied it before his coffee got cold. The county renamed the place Lake Sanders. Kids planted no more fines flags, and for the first time in years, all you could hear was laughter, a guitar, and the soft lap of water. No more HOA patrols, just neighbors, stories, and freedom. So yeah, it wasn't just about winning a fight or beating a bully. It was about remembering that you don't own something you love. You just take care of it so it can outlast you. Sophie Ward thought power was noise, but the lake remembered better. If you've ever dealt with your own HOA nightmare, your own self-appointed tyrant, remember truth doesn't need to shout. It just stands its ground and waits for the tide to turn. Now you tell me, what's your wildest HOA story? Drop it in the comments. Let's see who's got the best revenge tale. And if you believe peace is worth fighting for, hit subscribe and stick around. Out here, we don't just tell stories, we remind folks what real community looks like, one lake at a time.